Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the third session of the day here today at the ISA Solar Hub. This is a unique session that we have designed only for an action-oriented platform that ISA has initiated for the small island development stage. This COP30 at the heart of the Amazon was positioned as the COP of implementation and the COP of truth. The SIDS group has always been spoken about from a vulnerability point of view and the kind of existential threat they face because of climate change. There has been less and less action that we have seen. We at the International Solar Alliance, an intergovernmental treaty-based organization with 125 member countries, have 37 SIDS countries as members. And when we were going through, our portfolio of options that we could offer, we thought solar makes absolute sense for the small island states. I have a short presentation that I will take you through, which is actually at the back of the speakers. The small island states are completely reliant on diesel for their electricity needs, making it a massive fiscal burden because of diesel import costs. Solar has a huge role to play, of course, because of the cost of electricity, also the reduction that you have in import bills, but also solar is just more than a mitigation option for the small island states. It's also adaptation, a livelihood, a natural ecosystem option as well. No, sorry, I didn't want to move to the next slide. I think I'm just pausing for the translation to work fine. Now, of course, the challenges to transition are phenomenal. SIDS are across a variety of economic transitions as well, with high per capita income in some to very, very poor access to resources that are available. That's where we thought of introducing a SIDS platform, which is nothing but a digital marketplace of solar IPPs of utility scale solar plus storage to aggregate demand, bring about scale in costs, and then take it forward to implementation across a variety of countries. Why is this beneficial? It's a fiscal stability concept. It's a reduced diesel dependency, moving away from fossil fuels. It has all the co-benefits of SDGs, climate change, both the mitigation and the adaptation aspects that come in together. It enhances data-driven policy making and decision making, and looks at capacity building initiatives and readiness as well. To position it for success, we have based it on the successful example of how the World Bank executed their solar project called Aspire. And I'm in the country of Maldives. I'm really delighted that Ali from Maldives has joined us here to take us through his experience as well. But in the 10 years that Maldives was actually engaged, the World Bank was engaged with Maldives, the cost in 2012, which was US dollar 21 cents, fell to around 9.82 cents over 10 years. While it took a long time, we thought this was a good practice to base our experience on, because the replication should take considerably shorter amount of time. What the Maldives example also showed us was that while the world looks at installing PV, then planning storage, and then planning the transmission network, actually it should have been the other way around. I can't see the slides. The SIDS platform will be operationalized through a customized procurement pipeline that we are working with on countries, an IT platform for aggregation, of course aligned to domestic context and customized in country realities and built on global best practices. We then went through, since April till where we are today, 3 regional consultations and 1 consultation with all our member countries in New Delhi, starting in Latin America and Caribbean, in, or in fact actually Sri Lanka, for the Asia Pacific meeting in April, followed by a consultation with the Caribbean islands in August, and then bringing them all together in Delhi. And we got the intent letter signed from 19 of the SIDS countries who were ready to move on to this centralized platform for procurement and starting the exercise there. I will skip through this in the interest of time. As an institutional arrangement, one of the things that was highlighted to us will come as a challenge is that when you go on to centralized procurement systems, there has to be a buy-in from the local governments. So how do you get together a group or a technical committee or a steering committee which has representatives of these countries that can own the centralized process? Number two was the access to a panel of experts. These could be procurement experts, policy experts, solar technology experts. Floating solar could make sense somewhere vis-a-vis rooftop solar, or tourist homes could make some sense somewhere else. Based on this, we designed this institutional arrangement, something that had worked in a West Africa World Bank project, around having a coordinated technical committee to oversee the standardized procurement procedures, and making available a panel of experts at our own costs, so that countries could lead on those on that experience, and then designing procurement lots, which could be either geographical or technological. Of course, out of our 37 member countries, only 17 are ready for procurement. At ISA, our intent is to leave no one behind. So we will have the other set of countries and work with them on readiness activities, so that we enable them to be ready for procurement in the next year or two. Our milestones is that we have already started to reach out to the countries to prepare a detailed list of project pipeline. Then we have the MOU by the first or middle of next year, followed by tender documents in the third quarter of next year, with announcement of the procurement by next year COP. Hopefully, if Australia is hosting it, the small islands agenda will become top of the line. Today we have gathered here to have an operational discussion, and I have a stellar panel today, moderated by my Director General, Mr. Ashish Khanna. So sir, without further ado, let me hand it over to you to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Karan. Let me start by asking people who are here, how many of you are from SIDS? Okay, of course the panel here is, of course. How many of you know what SIDS is? Okay, it's very good. We have an audience on which this level of discussion is. So SIDS are small island developing states. You can see from Pacific, there are a lot of islands like Fiji, Kiribati, Papua New Guinea, which are islands. Then there are a lot of reefs that we have. And then in Caribbean, we have Dominican Republic, Dominica, St. Kitts, Barbados. So all of them. What's common in them is almost 85% of all their energy comes from fossil fuels, which means diesel, heavy fuel oil, which cost at least 4 to 5 times of solar and storage. Why are they still doing it? Some of these countries, unfortunately, are spending 8% to 13% of their GDP, not only of the budget, on fossil fuel subsidies. Some of the young people here, let me tell you, some of them are spending 5 times the total money spent on education in those countries just on fossil fuel subsidies. When the technology is so cheap, where you can do solar and storage now, it is criminal to actually continue to have systems only based on diesel. What they have been saying, rightfully so, we know the problem. Stop telling us what the solution is. Help us implement. And therefore this platform, and I must admit my own journey is very evolutionary. When we went to our Asia Pacific meeting with Pacific countries, we went in not knowing whether they will be keen. And 5 of them signed a political declaration to work together, including then 3 from Asia and Africa. When we went to Latin America and Caribbean, we were not sure whether they will be interested. 9 of them, in a day's notice, signed a political declaration to come together. And therefore, we have 19 countries saying, now let us do it together. I will summarize what Karan mentioned, what are the benefits of doing it together. First, you learn from each other. Because all of you have the same problem, that islands have diesel, they can have solar and storage at a fraction of the cost to do the same thing. Second, you need to have scale. Because large private sector does not want to do small projects. And then the scale will also lead to reduction in costs. And finally, when you do it together, you can do it in a way that is sustainable. Sustainable from hurricanes, from other kinds of disasters, but also sustainable from a long-term solution of this not falling flat. And we have a panel today where the countries will tell themselves of how they see this solution and what we can do in actually making it work. We will also have Commonwealth, Secretariat and Coalition of Disaster Resilience and Infrastructure, which is looking at primarily on how to get resilience on these projects talk about. I'm going to start with Maldives. Welcome, Mr. Sharif. So, Mr. Ali Sharif, you have the honor of doing the project, which is in some ways the inspiration, the 11 megawatts of solar and storage. Now, based on having done that project, what do you feel needs to happen to scale it up, and what kind of aggregated product procurement and financing is really required for SIDS to get to this platform?
Can you hear me? Can't? Okay. Because I hear myself too much. Yeah, first of all, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this panel. I think by seeing the turn up of the audience here, I think, you've done quite a good job, and then it sees a lot of interest, in this technology, and I'm really happy to see that. But I was kind of, disappointed as well to see that very few hands came up when he asked about what a SIDS is. Anyway, that's okay. I mean, coming from a small island means, really small. I mean, I'm coming from the capital, and Male, the capital is like barely 5 square kilometers. Barely 5 square kilometers, that's really small. And just to give a, bit of narration about the Maldives, we import everything. We import the fossil fuel to meet our daily demands. And looking at the statistics, even last year, I remember that, the government was spending about $100 million to purchase fossil fuel. And that's something like 8% of our GDP. So 8% of our GDP is spent on producing the electricity demand which we need. And by the, we are also developing, so similar to other developing small islands, the demand for electricity keeps on growing. And when these demands really grow, our emissions grow, the space which is required to install these generator systems is also, very few. So we feel that, specifically you put the example of putting this 11 megawatt system, which is quite beneficial. I think and that would be the largest system which we'd be putting in for now in Maldives. Because currently the largest system which we have put is, I think it's 5 megawatts, if I remember correctly. So this is kind of doubling what we have done before. So this would be an enormous project, and that's happening in the south. The 5 megawatt which I'm speaking is, of course, based in the capital, but the one we are putting that's coming in south. And the beauty of that particular project is, of course, that's coming with the battery storage system and everything. That's like a complete system. And I haven't got the statistics of about how much we would be savings which is made on. But if we compare that system with the one that we have in the center, if I'm not wrong, from that 5 megawatt system, I think we save few rounds of millions of rupiah per year. So the story here is, every dollar that we save on putting in these solar systems, that money could be used in alleviating the other sectors which is more needed, like the education systems, the health systems, even our coastal systems are, jeopardized with the rise in sea levels and whatnot. So those money which we save on putting in the, into the generators, the money we save could be, put in a much better use, actually, I would say. So that actually becomes a huge savings on the national budget. And the other thing is, the financial systems. When we started, we have been putting the solar systems. I remember, when this World Bank project started, actually I was in the very beginning of, when this Aspire and POISE program was formulated through the CIF. And, by then the solar panels was, I think, we had to spend about $4,000 per kilowatt to install the systems. But now, those systems has come down quite low actually. But still, that was coming from the public financing. But now with these new financing schemes coming in, we have been able to, utilize the private sector to come in. I mean, for the private sector, our resorts, consume quite a lot of, because I'm talking about the world-class resorts, and they consume quite a lot of our diesel fuel which we purchase. I mean, if you look at our national emissions, that 64% of the emissions is by the tourism sector. Imagine the amount of fossil fuel they'll be using, not only for the power generation, of course they use for the transportation as well. So with the private sector, if they see that, a good financial scheme to be backed up, then they would, have the incentive to purchase, use their own. So within this, what we experience the most positive is, if there's a guarantee system, coming in, whether that's from World Bank or from anywhere, then they are more willing to open up and to put their money on the table. Why? First thing is, yes, they are not very sure about the government reliance when it comes to the national sovereignty to put as a guarantee. But if it is a World Bank or a other more trusted source which is going to back up their investments, then they are more happy. That was what we did for our 5 megawatt system. The World Bank gave the guarantee, so it was a private investment which came in, and then it brought down the production price from, I remember initially it was 25 cents, and even that project came down to 10 or 9 cents. So that's a huge reduction actually, compared to what the government would have spent on producing. So I think, and then I would put on the some comment on the procurement system. Okay, right now, with the procurement systems that we have in place now through the World Bank, of course it's going through, I remember I was involved, I was overseeing as a director of one of those projects, and I remember, from the time we put the announcement and the time the actual investments or the actual construction starts, sometimes it's taken over more than a year. Of course, we are talking about the private sector money, because these are very serious money which we are talking. Of course, that has to go through very rigorous systems. But still, I feel that, if we can reduce 1 year through this kind of, central procurement systems, and of course, from the government side, we'll do what we can do to convince the finance ministers and whoever to, use this kind of pooled system, so that it will, I feel that, it will reduce the time that it will take to procure. The amount of time that we save is the amount of money that we'd be saving in the future as well. So thank you.
Thank you. I think very well said, Mr. Ali Sharif. You talked about the importance of private sector. Please do understand that solar 99% plus global investments are done by private sector. So in the SIDS, we actually want private sector to come in, invest in. He spoke about the importance of some risk mitigation to allow private sector to give a lower bid, and he spoke about the speed of procurement. All three very valid points. Let me go to the Caribbean and Miss Pamela Abiru, who's the head of mitigation on National Council on Climate Change and Clean Development Mechanism for Dominican Republic. I believe the Dominican has also done an Azul solar project, which includes solar plus storage, and that's also a great example of almost doubling the capacity between 2020 and 23. Now, in your opinion, to meet your target of 25%, what innovation would you like to see in the SIDS to actually achieve your targets, and what is the value proposition you see?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak here. One of the things I wanted to say first was that you say in common, normally islands have a dependency on fossil fuels. But apart from that, another common thing is that most of them import them. So parting from that scheme, we are in the Dominican Republic looking for using our resources. And as you mentioned, in their country we have more than double our energy, renewable solar energy, renewable capacity. On 2019, we had around 540 megawatts installed, and we increased up to 2,000 megawatts installed of renewable, which is a huge effort that we have made through corporations. He mentioned SIF. SIF is actually one of the elements that we have been using to increase the financial investment. But at the same time, there's like a precedent or priority. The president of the country is always looking for being more ambitious all the time. When we talk about SIDS, we have to consider resilient infrastructures, and that's one of the things that I believe that's why CDR, one of our cooperative partners, is here. We have to think about not only how good or effective is the system, but also how resilient. Recently, we had a flood with a hurricane Melissa that was devastating on the Caribbean, and for 4 days there was like probably problems with the water management, and recently we have a problem with the light system went off completely. So even though we have the renewables, and even though there was fossil fuels at the same time, there was a problem on the system that the countries stay for 1 day without any kind of energy. So we have to consider, when it comes to the SIDS platform and when it comes to attracting investment, how we can actually create systems that are not only are renewable, that you have the storage, but they are resilient to the different conditions and issues that the countries, especially SIDS, face. So parting from that, we believe that that's one of the key elements when it comes to creating something more valuable in the future. At the same time, we think about diversifying the matrix. So you have solar, you can also have eolic, you can have water, and that's one of the approaches that the country has been taking so far. But also thinking about rural communities, sometimes through education. I think one of the points that you mentioned in the first aspect was sensitizing educational aspects is a way of ensuring that the community is part of the decision making. Also, when you would like to track the investment, but also doing the infrastructure implementation, so they actually being involved in the system, you create more jobs. That's a way of promoting it in the country. Other aspect is storage. We need still lack a lot of storage in the Dominican Republic. We can attract, we can produce it, solar, we can produce electric. Still, there's this lacking of storage. And that's one of the way forward. By 2028, the country is seeking for the 4,300 megawatts installed. It's already been in operation, so they are starting doing the concessional and all the processes to ensure that. And as I said, the president had already this priority. So one of the targets that was set that by 2025 we should have been able to have 25% of renewable at least installed capacity in the Dominican Republic, and we achieved that on the 2024. Now we're looking for 30% by 2030, and we continue increasing and raising the bar because we believe there's always an approach that is moving into renewables. And that's a way actually of using your own resources. So that's one of the things that we are very rich on. Solar, for example. Solar is on the tropical islands, is one of the main resources that you have available. So looking ahead of how can strategically you can actually use these resources is the way forward, but engage the community and continue having this strategic partnership. This is really important for us. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. I think you raised the question of resilience that I'm going to come to Amit about, but also about the long-term planning of aspects. So Amit, as given CDRI's core mission of strengthening climate resilience infrastructure, how can a SIDS platform, which is looking at a digital procurement tool, take advantage of the knowledge of CDRI? And my question is, if you can answer that both in terms of the actual procurement, but then in terms of the asset maintenance and asset management as well. How can CDRI own knowledge be helpful, and how can CDRI be part of the SIDS platform?
Thank you so much, Ashish. And I think, first of all, I need to congratulate you because the topic that you're taking forward is incredibly important for a few reasons, and allow me to explain those. If you see what happened 2 weeks back when Hurricane Melissa passed through 3-4 islands, the cost of damage has been incredibly high. So, for example, in Jamaica, the infrastructure losses add up to about $20 billion of damage. Now, Jamaica's GDP, that's 30% of Jamaica's GDP that's lost in one storm. Let me give you one more example. I see a lot of youth here on their phones. In 2011, Hurricane Maria destroyed power in Puerto Rico. There was no power for close to 1 year. So can you imagine your lives without a phone for 1 year? Right? SIDS are facing challenges that are getting worse for a lot of reasons. We're sitting in COP. Cyclones intensities are increasing. So if you talk to Jamaica, they were planning for category 4 storms. Well, Melissa broke all the records when it came to wind speeds. Now, we launched a report yesterday that highlights that if countries can recover soon, the economic cost is reduced. So typically right now, when a disaster happened in Dominica, it takes 15, 20 years for the country to come back. Now, if you reduce 15, 20 years to 10 years, you reduce the impact on your economy, the losses on your economy by half. And if you can fast track that to 4 years, which is what Japan does, your impact on the economy is even less. So speed of recovery is incredibly important, and that's where procurement becomes very, very critical. If a hurricane passes through Dominican Republic tomorrow and damages the power infrastructure, where are they going to find resources? And where are they going to find resources quickly? So that speed of reconstruction. So if you can figure out ways of saying, in situations when there is a hurricane that passes through the Caribbean, very quickly you can mobilize expertise. So you're already talking about experts. Resources, your supplies. What does it take for your solar system to be resilient? I'll come to that in a minute. So, the procurement side is actually post-disaster. But at the same time, when you think about energy resilience islands, solar you may find maybe easier to rebuild compared to some of the other technologies. So if you can focus on that as well, then you're giving the island nations an ability to say, we will be hit by hurricanes. There's nothing, today in the world, you're not going to stop hurricanes. But in that context, how do you make sure that your infrastructure, if it gets damaged, is recovered quickly? Now, when you're planning your infrastructure, the long-term planning part, and you're saying, if my island is 1 million people or 2 million people, what are my energy needs? Currently, where are they coming from, diesel, etc.? In the next 20 years, where is that shift happening? And when that shift is happening, how do I make sure that through procurement platforms like yours, the cost of that change is not massive? Otherwise, no. How do you make sure that the people are trained to fix things? How do you make sure that the extra, so for, today we plan infrastructure for wind speeds that were from 10, 15 years ago. When you now install in buildings, how do you make sure that you've actually accommodated for the future changes that are coming because wind speeds are going up? So all of these factors become the aggregator, and CDR has, we're very happy to do this. We've got models that we've developed for risk mapping. We've helped Dominican Republic come up with a whole risk map atlas for the country. If you factor that in your long-term planning for energy resilience, then we're making the SIDS more resilient to future shocks.
Thank you, Amit. I will say there are so many things you said. First is your procurement specifications need to allow for civil structures that can account for increased wind speeds, hurricane speeds, and others. And the second is the agility on doing a quick procurement for disaster relief as well. And third, I think often that is unfortunately misplaced, do the procurement in a way that the maintenance of those assets is taken care of as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first part of that is also make sure that the codes that you're building to are accommodating future risks.
Great. Let me come to Mauritius, Mr. Grandcourt. We are working with Mauritius because it's also a country partnership strategy. And Mauritius also has a huge solar plan. I was there recently and it was wonderful to see you have both commercial, industrial consumers, floating solar. How do you see the SIDS platform helping Mauritius, and what would you like to see in terms of SIDS process but also the outcomes? And what is the value Mauritius sees in being part of the SIDS platform? And one more question, since you are in COP, you are very happy to say, what would you like COP to think about arrangements like SIDS platform?
Yes, thank you. Hello everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation and also congratulate you for this initiative. Yes, I'm from Mauritius. Okay, as you know, as all SIDS, we do have challenges. Okay, and I think it's all about modeling. We need a model which will work in all the SIDS. Okay, I think I won't repeat what you have just mentioned, but one thing which is very, very important is, first of all, having a long-term political commitment. This is very important for all the SIDS, and also a stable stakeholder collaboration. We need to collaborate with stakeholders because like the World Bank, the AFD, and any other international or local agencies who are really willing to help. And also, we need a cost-effective and a replicable solution, which is very important, so that we can also replicate in all the SIDS. And also, there should be, to answer to your question, a financing mechanism. We need a financing mechanism so that every country in the SIDS can tap from this agency or bank or etc., so that we can better reach the finance and have solutions. And what we need, in all the SIDS, we are quite willing to go for this transition. We are quite willing, And what we need is facilities. We need the facilities. We need, if I answer to your question regarding at the end of the COP, what we need in the city is get access to finance. It's maybe at times when we look at the SIDS, they say it's all about scaling. You know, as our friend from Maldives he says, he lives in a country or the capital is 5 kilometers square. Yeah. You can't imagine how difficult and how we have to be resilient to be in such to live on an island of 5 kilometers square. This is maybe you won't understand when you have put the question. Those who know what they SID. So living in an island, you will agree with me, we have many challenges. Okay, and I will also add, maybe we have to consider to cancel debt for SIDS suffering from extreme climate change impacts. This we have to go for another level to discuss about cancelling our debts, because we do face difficulties, and the SIDS, they are those islands who pollute the less in this world we are living, and this is important. And I think also we need to introduce specific impact assessment and funding criteria for the SIDS. Our criteria, for example, for a big country, as far as finance is concerned, it is different. So we need to have specific criteria for the SIDS, because we strongly believe that we need help. And also, we need to promote policies and regulations designed to enable self-sufficiency at community level. This is very important. In Mauritius, we have both. We have at national level, that is big solar farms, for example, and we do also have solar farms at community level. It is very important to get the community involved and to get this sense of accepting that technology, because we all know when the people participate, it is more sustainable. So I believe that first of all we need finance, we need one modeling which we can replicate in all the SIDS, and also have the commitment from other stakeholders, banks, etc., and also get the community involved in the whole process, that is the transition towards clean and renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a grand statement by Mr. Grandcourt about the importance of political will, the importance of financing, importance of communities. I'm actually going to go to Mr. Yadav now, who's from the Commonwealth Secretariat. And most of the SID countries are members of Commonwealth Secretariat. How do you think Commonwealth Secretariat can play both a convening power, maybe harmonizing of some of the standards and learnings? How do you see, how can SIDS, because SIDS have been asking implementation support, not talk, finance and implementation support. How do you see Commonwealth Secretariat can be a part?
Thank you. Thank you, Ashish. And first of all, before I say anything, please give a big round of applause to Ashish and the ISA. Then I'll tell you the reason why I'm asking. So please. The problem of SIDS you have heard from the SIDS representative, and it's there everywhere. If you Google it, you will find the challenges. And challenges are economic, challenges are political, challenges of debt, challenges of hurricane, disaster, fuel, subsidy, all multiple challenges. If you think of any challenge in life, is there in the SIDS. I have been to SIDS in Caribbean and the Pacific. And what Ashish and his team has done is phenomenal. For the first time, using the instruments, using the platform, SIDS can think of beyond energy security, what I call is energy sovereignty, that you being energy sovereign. You might have heard about people talking about AI sovereign, but here is energy sovereign, which goes much beyond anything which is being talked about, because you can decide. You can decide collectively because you don't have individual power. So he is giving that collective power to the SIDS. 15 seats, 20 seats, 25 seats can come on a platform and decides to procure that powerful thing which they have been looking for. And the other very indirect effect which he is doing, I've been on the World Bank board and I know that what are the complaints of the member countries, getting the projects in 27 months, now 28 months. By simple collective procurement, he is able to solve many of the challenges which the multilateral development banks are facing. He's able to cut down their cycle time because the procurement takes a lot of time. And hopefully the MDBs will use his procurement system to fund the other projects. So these are the very transformative work. Personally, I see being in the World Bank board, being in the Commonwealth, being in all other multilateral institutions. It's transformative. It's not simple, but the people, you have to understand that how and what kind of impact is going to be there. We have always talked about aggregating the investment class, that you come and adopt a regional approach and make the investment in the SIDS. That's one class of theory which has been there. The innovation here is aggregating the expenditure part, because that's an expenditure. So that is the first reverse innovation, that you are aggregating the demand and then you are bringing the market forces and able to disrupt the pricing. Otherwise, so difficult. Nobody has tried to disrupt the prices. I mean, even if you look at the India, till India announced 175 gigawatt intention, and now even beyond that, till that point of time, solar was unaffordable. So what India witnessed 5-7 years back in the solar, he's exporting that innovation to the SIDS, which is so powerful. Individually, as I said, the SIDS lack that collective bargaining power. So he is bringing that political instrument to bargain. They can decide, they can negotiate with the energy supplier, with the other agency, that no, this is the pricing I'm looking for. So this is the big energy independence. This is big sovereign aspect I see on this initiative. And thank you very much to you and your team. Now, coming back to his direct question, he rightly pointed out that the Commonwealth is a 75-year-old institution delivering a lot of, integrated. We work on democratic resilience, we work on environmental resilience, and we work on economic resilience. So his work combines into both environmental resilience and economic resilience. We have our climate finance advisors in the Caribbean, we have in the Pacific, we have in the Africa. And what those advisors does, they bridge the gap. Even if there is a finance capital, there are no projects in the SIDS because there is no capacity to develop those projects. So we bridge this particular gap by developing the projects, which can be funded by multilateral institution, can be funded by the private sector and the various instruments. So it's still, even in this process, I do see that the Climate Finance Advisors Network, which we have around the Commonwealth family and also beyond that, will be able to collaborate in a big way and get that project cycle ready. So that's where I see. And plus we have a lot of political convening power, like all these leaders. We have a ministerial meeting, we have the Leaders Summit, which is coming in the island state in Antigua in November 2026. So that's the highest level political leadership of the SIDS and others come together. So I do hope that these are the instruments which will be collaborating. We are the institutional partner of ISA. We have been working very closely, but we want to take it to the next level. And on the top of it, in the SIDS you might have seen the Prime Minister of Barbados talking about new financial architecture. But let me tell you that how this work, if you combine Ashish, if you combine Amit, CDRI, ISA, and then you combine the project power of the Climate Finance Access Hub I have talked about, that it answers many of the questions of the leaders, that the Bretton Woods or the old institutions have failed and they want a new instrument. So if you combine the collective bargaining, you bring the collective bargaining power, you bring the collective procurement, you bring the guarantees which is Africa Solar Finance Facility is talking about. If you bring what Amit has talked about, the resilience infrastructure, and if you bring what Commonwealth is doing in bringing the readiness of the projects, if you combine these 3-4 instruments, you have a new architecture which doesn't rely on the donors, which doesn't rely on many of the things which delays the implementation. So here is a very action-oriented agenda, and I'm so happy that in COP30 when we are talking about the action everywhere, this is a perfect action, right? So congratulations once again to you, and congratulations to all the states who have signed up for this very powerful tool. And I can assure you that we'll be a very willing partner. We'll walk with you with mature step and see that we can bring this power to the states, giving the power to them in their hands so that they can decide what is good for them, not others decide what is good for them. So that independence, I think, is a great step, and I'm sure that all the SIDS country will enjoy and look forward to many more such innovative steps from. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Mr. Yadav. As you will all agree, I need to get him to my board. Yeah, he's such a great votary. Thank you. You also talked about the importance of SIDS is serving an action agenda, and you would all be very pleased to know that among very few things the COP presidency decided to put in the action forum, SIDS platform is one of them, for which there's a session tomorrow with 12 ministers exactly talking about how this is all about action, which is the COP presidency, and of course the transformative potential. I will like to open it up, but I want to ask one quick 1-minute summary from all 4 of you. Unfortunately or fortunately, there are far too many announcements and platforms that fizzle out. And it is our collective responsibility to see SIDS platform is not one of them, but can actually deliver results. And that will require collective accountability. We are conveners, but we cannot do it alone. If we were to decide what is success in 1 year and then what success in 3 years from this SIDS platform, what would you think it would be? I'm going to start on this side. What would success look like in 1 year and 3 years? And then we'll open.
Well, so first, I will say that we need to have all the partners involved. So having the key partners involved in each nation in the platform aligned. I know we're one of the signatory members from the government, but we need other partners like private sector as well. So having this stakeholders already engaged, then the second stage is an action plan. So which, I think Mauricio was mentioning, which criteria is needed so that the projects can be more financial. So for example, we have regional projects with the CDRI, and they become more robust when we engage with other countries such as Cuba and Haiti. So maybe having this criteria, how can we actually set these projects that we can attract the right investment at the right time? It will be really good, successful in the 3 years. So we might, to achieve our NDC targets, we might achieve also resilience, what we're looking at, and also at the same time assuring that the economy of the country is increasing. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I think we first of all need to identify all the key barriers, okay, that can prevent us from reaching our objectives. But I do agree with you that we have to get united, okay, and speak the same language. And I know your effort about that endeavor, which is of course we see to we appreciate. So I think a common action, a common strong action is very important for the next step.
Amit, what would you think?
I think very quickly proof of concept. Because I think one of the things we've all seen, and you said it, right? Ideas come, announce, and sustaining them is not the easiest thing to do. And so what can you demonstrate within 1 year, which can then be scaled up by 3? So if having very, very clear, if the procurement platform can demonstrate, and I know you've already got early signers, so if you can take them and say 1 across every region or 2 across every region, if you can demonstrate that in the first year, then you'll see multiplier results by the 3rd year.
I think the first step has already been by strong interest from the SIDS, which is itself is a very powerful symbol. The other one, I will say that the adoptions into practice by the Goj countries in actually going forward and coming to take it up in their energy demands using these platforms. And thirdly, I will say that should reflect in terms of their energy bills, right, which I talked about, because it's ultimately, as I mentioned, pitched in about energy sovereignty. So it should be reflected that their petrol, diesel imports have gone down. And lastly, this entire ecosystem is about creating a business model. And in the SIDS country, the young people are at the heart of everything. Try to see that how young people latch it up and generates more entrepreneurial activities in an offshoot of this model. So that shows that this system is embedded not only in the government, but in the young people from whom we are talking about the climate justice and ensuring intergenerational climate justice for the years to come. So these are the parameters which I think I'll be looking for. I'm sure that the way you have shown anybody, I will say you please make this video and send it to the young SIDS in the country, because I got my renewable energy in 92, 94, and I saw that all his knowledge which is acquired, he has put in all the work. So please do make a video and send it to young people so that it leads to more entrepreneurship, more startups in the SIDS countries. That's how I will look at it, Ashish. Thank you.
Thank you. I can also say from our side, we would like that among the 19 SIDS countries that have really signed the pledge, and I will tell you what may sound like a small thing, but it's a very big thing. Each country is having their own national procurement law, which means that only they will decide what the procurement should be. But they're saying, no, we will supersede a national procurement law for a joint procurement. It's a very big thing. Sometimes it requires a parliament approval in some of the countries. So that's the level of political will we are seeing. We have to translate into the first procurement bid being launched in next 6 months. Because the proof of the pudding is only when a market sees a well-prepared procurement bid of at least 5 SIDS countries, leading to multiple programs over next 3 years. And in 3 years, at least 2 phases of 300 to 400 megawatts as their own should have been commissioned. That's an ambition that we are all collectively having. So we have about 10 minutes. We can take 2-3 questions. Any questions? The music is very interesting, but let's just think about 1 or 2 questions. We will. Any questions? One last call. Great. Thank you very much. And keep everyone together, because whether it's the young people, the private sector, the government, all of us are in together in making this happen. Thank you very much.